Welcome. My name is Elizabeth Carrio. I am an international consultant, a transpersonal psychologist, and the author of Awakening the Spiritual Mind, a book coming out in December 2026. I have spent over 40 years working with leaders, governments, and organizations in almost 30 countries, helping people and institutions navigate complex transitions and find their direction. This course comes directly from at work. It is called Find Your Direction, and that title says exactly what it is. Not a concept, not a theory, but a structured and practical journey to help you understand who you are, identify what you truly want, and live with a concrete project and your very next action step. Let me show you what that means. Who is for? It is for people who have achieved a great deal and still feel that something essential is missing. It is for people at the crossroads, a career transition, a life change, an identity shift, and no clear map forward. It is for those who are busy, productive, effective, and yet, somewhere along the way, lost touch with what actually matters to them. And it is for those who sense quietly that there is more, but don't know where to start. If you recognize yourself in any of this, you are in the right place. Let me be very specific about what you will live with, because this is not a course you complete and forget. First, self-knowledge, a clear, honest picture of who you are, your values, your patterns, your inner drivers, beyond the roles you have been playing. Second, a true direction, clarity on what you actually want, not what you were conditioned to want, not what others expect of you. This is genuinely yours. Third, a project, a concrete vision or initiative that reflects your authentic self, your skills, and your next chapters in life. And fourth, your next action, a clear defined next step that you will identify before you leave the course. You won't live with a vague sense of inspiration. You will live with something real, something tangible, something you can do immediately. That is the commitment of this course. In addition, chapter ends with a practical exercise. You can already download the exercise book or journal on the website indicated on the slide. How does it work? The course follows 3 steps, a progression that I have observed again and again in the field, in organizations navigating change and in individuals at turning points. Step 1, understand. Before anything else, you need a clear picture of where you are, inside and outside. We map your inner world, the multiple dimensions of yourself, your archetypes, the sub-personalities that drive your decisions. And we decode your environment, the cultural systems, life cycles, and developmental frameworks, including spiral dynamics, that shape the world around you. You cannot find a direction without knowing the terrain. Step 2, withdraw. This is the least expected step and the most essential. The word is deliberate, not reflect or pause, withdraw. You disengage from the noise, from the automatic doing, and create a space for what Otto Scharmer calls presencing, a deep listening that allows the emergent future to reveal itself. Here, you learn to trust your intuition, practice generative listening, and dissolve the belief loops that have been running you without your awareness. Step 3, act. You return, not as the same person, but with greater clarity, greater coherence. At this stage, you draw on all 4 intelligences, emotional, somatic, intuitive, and spiritual. You define your project, you make your decision, you walk the soul-led path. Understand, withdraw, act, this is the arc. The course is organized into 5 modules structured around the 3 steps. Module 1 opens the journey. Why are you there? We look honestly at the signal, what your fatigue, your restlessness, or your sense of emptiness is actually telling you. Because these are not problems to fix, they are information. Module 2 goes deeper into the first step, understand. You map your inner self, your archetypes, your sub-personalities through methods like voice dialogue or internal family systems and Kabbalistic psychology. And you decode your outer context through the lens of life cycles and spiral dynamics. Module 3 is a threshold, the turning point. You enter the second step, withdraw. You practice silence. You learn to access the epoche described by Husserl, the suspension of assumptions. And you discover generative listening as Otto Scharmer defines it in Theory U. You begin to hear what is truly emerging. Module 4 continues the inner work, ego, energy, and inner alchemy. You examine and release the belief loops that have been running your decisions. You make space. And Module 5 is the return, you awakening your spiritual intelligence. A practical evidence-based capacity to act from the deepest values. You align mind, heart, and body. You define your project. You choose your next action. Each module is accompanied by exercises from the Awakening Journal, included as a free companion workbook. Before you enroll, I want to be completely transparent about what this course is and what is not. This is not a meditation application. This is not a spiritual retreat. It is not a collection of self-help tips you read once and forget. It is not a passive content you can watch while doing something else. And it is not a substitute for therapy. What it is a structured methodology with clear steps, interactive with exercises in each and every module, built on 40 years of research and field work, adapted from a book being published in December 2026. And it is designed to produce one concrete output, your project, your direction, your next step defined. If you are ready to do the work, this course will deliver. So the clarity you are looking for doesn't come from waiting. You don't need another year of reflection. You don't need to read one more book before you start. You need a method, and you need to begin. This course gives you both the inner map and the practical tools to find your direction and take your first real step. 5 modules, self-paced, 40 years of research behind it, one project, yours, by the end. I'll see you inside. Thank you for your attention.